Okay? All right, so I guess first question for you guys before we get into any of this, if we think about peer fitness training, the peer fitness training program specifically, what does success look like for you guys? And so if you could reflect on, your department or what you would want it to look like in your department. Anybody have thoughts about what success actually looks like?
Work comp reduction.
Work comp reduction, love that. Anybody else?
Injury reduction.
Injury reduction. Anybody else? Those are two big things. Two big things. What'd you say?
At my department, it'd just be getting guys into the gym working out at least once an hour, once a shift.
Love that too. So maybe it's just participation in some type of exercise. Maybe that's the first step. If we want to see a reduction in injuries, if we want to see a reduction in work comp, maybe it is actually getting people to be active. So I think before you start, if you haven't launched a program yet, or if you're in the early stages of launching your program, this is the first question I would encourage everybody to think about. What are we actually trying to accomplish with this peer fitness training program? And I would encourage you to think much bigger than just exercise. And so I love the suggestions about work comp and injury and just being active. From my experience, kind of working with departments all across the country, a lot of it has been exercise related. And I think we have to go beyond that. Exercise might be the vehicle or the tool that we first think about when, it's peer fitness training, the fitness is in the title. But that's not the impact or where we want to have the impact. I don't care about making people better in the gym. It's, what impact can we have in the gym outside of the gym? And so when we're putting together our programs, we really need to keep that in mind, that success really should look like the impact that we have elsewhere. Okay, so I have this slide here, so a bunch of different just words. Anybody, any thoughts on what is common with all of these things?
Eating habits.
Eating habits, like that. Nutrition can probably impact all this stuff. What else?
Sleep. Well, we've already got rest of sleep, but sleep patterns.
Sleep will influence all these things too.
All controllable.
All controllable, like that.
Stress.
Pardon?
Stress.
Stress can, like all these things can kind of interact.
A lot of them are related to our job.
Love it. So they're all things that are related to firefighting. These are issues that every department that I've worked with has. So again, if we're thinking about what does success look like, it's we need to be impacting this stuff. Like, we have work comp on here, their injuries are on here, but so is sleep, so is behavioral health. A lot of the programs that the IFF has are trying to address these things. Okay, these are things that are issues, conditions that are affecting the fire service. So if we're putting together a peer fitness training program, I would encourage you guys to think about how are we impacting this stuff? Because the other thing that links them all together, there is a ton of evidence to say that exercise changes all of them. So if we're thinking about peer fitness training, we have to go back to this stuff. This is the impact that I want to have. This is what success really should look like. Okay? If we can get people more active, then we're going to start to see a change in all these things right here. If we don't address the physical activity or the exercise piece, and we put a sleep program together, we put a behavioral health program together, it's not going to have the impact that it could have. The physical activity and exercise is a huge component to changing all of these things. And so I hope to when we leave today, to have you guys really think about, where peer fitness training fits into the bigger picture. I really, I might be a little bit biased, but, I can say that the evidence, the research says this as well, that exercise really is that linchpin that affects all of it. And so,
Back again, sorry, to that slide 1 second.
100%. I can share the presentation with you if you want it as well, but feel free to take a picture. Okay, there's a ton of evidence to show that exercise can influence all of these things. Okay, so we really need to think about exercise first, and where does this fit? So what the IFF is really trying to do, again, changes that have been coming to the program are, how do we influence the attitude, the perception of exercise within the fire service? If we know that exercise is good, and exercise really should be this first line of defense for a lot of the stuff that the conditions that are inflicting our members, it's how do we get people to actually buy into this? Because right now, I think everybody would probably agree that exercise is a good thing, and most members are not going to disagree with that. But it's how do we actually get them to do it? You know, is it that we need people to be exercising for an hour on shift? Maybe that's not where we start. Maybe that's the ultimate goal. That's what success can look like down the road. But maybe now we just need them to be active for 5 minutes. That's a start. So we also have to look at this as a longer term maybe process or solution. But I think exercise really should be at the forefront of all of these different things that we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so again, going back to this stuff. This is just some evidence to show, you know, that exercise can improve quality of life. It's shown to be as effective or more effective as some type of pharmacological treatment for behavioral health or mental health conditions. Influences diabetes, low back pain, injuries, 6-to-1 return on investment for, you know, any type of wellness and fitness. Exercise really can do all these things. You know, if we're looking for that magic pill, that magic drug that can, you know, really change our lives, this is it. It's it. So we don't have to look elsewhere. But again, like I said before, the question is, how do we actually get people to embrace it, to want to participate in it? And this is where the implementation piece comes. We have to start viewing it, you know, maybe as a behavioral problem, not just, hey, what exercises are good, how many reps and how many sets should I do? It's how do we actually get people to embrace this as a daily behavior? So just like, you know, I'll use the term hygiene later on in the talk. You know, we practice oral hygiene every day by brushing our teeth. We all probably shower, you know, once, twice a day. You know, just the cleanliness piece. You guys clean your gear all the time. It's part of hygiene, maintaining this health status. Movement and exercise really should be viewed in the same way. So we view movement hygiene as a huge piece of this, you know, solution to change the behaviors of our members. And we'll get into that. But like I said, you know, if we want to achieve all these different outcomes on the outside, we really have to look at what are the factors or the pieces that tie all this together. And ultimately, we're trying to change the daily behaviors of our members. Okay, and again, it's not about getting better in the gym, it's getting better outside of the gym. The gym or the exercise piece is just a vehicle to achieve those things. Everybody with me there? Okay. So how many people here like to exercise? Okay, so a lot of hands up. If you guys had to reflect on the members in your department, majority of the members in your department like to exercise, yes or no? No. Some departments, that's awesome. You guys are way ahead. From my experience, it's a no. And so we see most people don't necessarily like to exercise. A large part of that could just be the word. So just the word exercise. If I said physical activity instead of exercise, does that change your perception of what we're actually doing? Yeah? If I said stretching versus exercise, or yoga versus exercise, or CrossFit versus exercise, or hockey or basketball versus exercise, automatically it changes your perception of what we're doing. And so when we think, or when we throw out the term exercise, or we throw out the term pure fitness trainer, right away, a lot of the members get this preconceived idea in their head. And that's the barrier that prevents them from actually getting involved. It's got nothing to do with the actual solution or the program that we're putting in place. It's got everything to do with the messaging. So we really have to think about the messaging that we use when we're trying to promote this program. Okay, so just as an example, so, you know, here's me on the left. You know, when I am physically active, I like to push myself, but not everybody likes to do that. How many people like being sore from exercise? Couple? How many absolutely hate it? Okay, a lot of people hate it. That is a barrier right away. How many people get super excited? So this is my daughter here when she was just a couple months old. She's having tons of fun. But not, in my experience, a lot of firefighters don't view exercise or physical activity as fun. Maybe because that's, you know, what we've been pitching as exercise. But we have to realize if we're trying to, you know, push this program forwards and get everybody active, we have to realize that there's a lot of different attitudes towards this or perceptions of this within our departments. And so we have to cater to the diversity that exists if we want to be successful. Which means that there has to be lots of options. Everybody doesn't have to push themselves this hard. Everybody doesn't have to be sore. Everybody doesn't have to, you know, enjoy running. So don't run. There's lots of tools that we can use to exercise if the goal is that big list of things that I said. If the goal is not about getting you better in the gym, there's lots of tools that we can use. So let's lean on all those different tools and cater to everybody's interests, everybody's perceptions or attitudes towards this stuff. And what you might see is they start to shift over time. So people actually, start to think, hey, that's not so bad. I actually kind of like doing this thing. It makes me feel pretty good. And then they start asking for more and more and more stuff. But going in, we really have to realize that everybody doesn't view things the way, I view things or we view things. There's a lot of different attitudes towards this amongst our departments. So this is what, I kind of view as the big picture goal here. We need to get more firefighters more active more often. And if we can do that, then we can start knocking off a lot of that stuff on the list. If we look back at the list, there are going to be determinants or factors that really influence whether we're successful or not in achieving those things. So injuries have very specific mechanisms. Diabetes has very specific mechanisms. But we have to be active in order to start addressing some of these mechanisms. Okay, so the number one goal should be more firefighters, more active, more often. And then we can start, trickling, in some other things after that. But if we don't have firefighters active, then none of it matters. So this has to be, from my perspective, step number one. Let's do everything that we can to get people start thinking about, being more active in the department. And it may not be what, it might be a softer approach than, some departments are using. But I think if we look at this as a long-term strategy, that's what we need to be doing. If you're going to try and force people just to, be in the gym for an hour every day, it's probably not going to have the impact that you want to have. Because a lot of the stuff that we mentioned before is going to be dictated by the effort or the attitude that the individual has. If they don't have a positive view of this, or they're not putting in the effort that's required, then they're not going to get the benefit. Is that okay with you guys too? All right, so here are 6 steps that we feel are essential to your success in launching this type of program. And at the end of the talk, I'm going to walk you guys through a very practical example of what some of this could look like and some of the resources that we have to support these different steps. As a first step, you really have to think about who are the champions in your department. And so is that you right now? Is it one person that this whole thing is relying on? I would suggest that if it is just you at the moment, find a friend. So it isn't just you alone. There has to be at least 2 people, in my opinion, that are pushing this thing forwards. And so these individuals or this committee that you guys have, these champions, they're going to be really responsible for establishing the vision and direction for what this looks like. And so, like I said at the beginning, what does success look like? It comes from this group. And I would encourage you guys to think about how can we have a little diversity on this group so it's not all the same perspectives. So it's not always the most fit individuals that you want on your fitness and wellness committee. From my perspective, I would say, and this is what I've encouraged a lot of departments to do, is think about who are the most influential. You want influential people in that type of role. Because influential people are going to have a bigger impact on a lot of the members. And so if you can have somebody that maybe hasn't bought into the exercise piece in the past, but through various conversations you can get them thinking differently about what this whole initiative is about. If that person changes their mindset, they're going to have a bigger impact on the rest of the department. So after we've identified the champions, we have these teams, then it really is about assessing the needs and the wants of your department. What are you guys trying to accomplish? Where are we right now? So that you can then develop a plan in place to address these things. And again, I'll walk you guys through in a little more detail what this looks like. But the design of the intervention or the solutions that we're putting together have to be based on the information we've gathered. As an example, if I find that this department is, there's no money at all for any type of wellness, but the solution I design relies on, $10,000 a year to run it. Well, now these 2 things don't match. So if I've said, hey, we don't have any money, but then the strategy is you need $10,000, it's not going to work. So the design of the solutions have to be based on the information that we collect initially about the needs and the wants of everybody involved. And then when we actually go to implement it, the implementation has to be based on the types of members that we have, the perceptions of the members, the attitudes of the members. Again, just as a simple example, the messaging. So when we implement this, how we message it is going to matter. It's going to depend on what the current attitude towards fitness, wellness, health, however you want to sell it, the current attitude towards that in your department. If you sell this as an injury prevention strategy or an injury prevention approach, but nobody really cares about injuries, chances of them buying in are going to be very slim. Okay, so it just has to match. And so that assessment piece is going to be really big for you guys, because that tells you how do we move forwards with this from a design perspective and from an implementation perspective. And then kind of rounding that out, always collect feedback. Are we being successful? Are we meeting the objectives that we have? And so we have to evaluate where we are. And I would suggest, don't just say, if your ultimate goal is to reduce work comp, that's great. But that's going to take a year, 2 years, 3 years to actually see some type of result. So don't rely on just that one metric 3 years down the road to define your success. What are some of the smaller pieces along the way if you're going to say, am I on the right track? Because that's going to help you steer the ship a little bit, so that by the time you get to the 3-year mark, it's like, yeah, we are successful. Okay, so really think about what are some of the smaller, shorter term goals that you can meet along the way. And I'll give you guys some examples for this stuff as well. Okay, so as a first step, just digging in a little bit, at the top of this you have your wellness team. Underneath that, this is where we view the role of peer fitness trainers. Okay, so peer fitness trainers, from our perspective, are really your ambassadors or advocates for fitness and wellness. They're the resident experts. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have different roles and are going station to stations, or providing this or providing that off shift. It's just they're the resident experts. So they're the go-to people for any questions related to health and wellness. Okay? So because your wellness committee or your wellness team can't have that reach within the department. So you have these resident experts that are being provided with a little bit more education, more skills, that can carry that torch. But depending on your department and how things are laid out, they may not, the peer fitness trainers, you may not have enough to actually influence members at every single station and every single shift. And so what we also believe to be important is these frontline ambassadors. So not necessarily individuals with any additional education or any additional skills, but it's people that are buying into the whole message. They believe in wellness. They believe in what you guys are trying to do. So the peer fitness trainer could actually communicate with those individuals to influence behaviors at a station level. If you have the luxury of being able to send peer fitness trainers, on a semi-annual basis around to talk to different members, great. But if you don't, just have them communicate with the ambassadors over the phone, via email. So the ambassadors, the frontline individuals in every station, can actually have the impact that you want to have. But it really is thinking about how can we have a broader reach so we're touching every single member. And that's kind of the structure that we've laid out here. Some very simplistic guidelines in terms of how many peer fitness trainers should we need or should we have, how many ambassadors should we have. So we're saying number of PFTs, multiply the number of shifts you have by the number of districts that you have. Okay, as a practical example, we have a department here, 1,400 members, 4 shifts, 5 districts, 40 stations. So these individuals would have 20 PFTs. So 20 PFTs for 1,400 people. Okay, and it's really the PFTs are the resident experts really trying to filter the message across the department. And we could talk about the specific roles of the PFTs as we move forward as well. But I don't necessarily view or believe that the PFTs have to have like a paid role outside of just providing education, encouragement. If you have the luxury of having money to support that, awesome. But a lot of departments don't. But I still think there's value in having PFTs. So there's, again, there's people that can liaise or communicate with the IFF to really take some of the resources that we're providing, and disseminate them across your departments. Okay, so that's just an example. From a second step, so after we have the wellness team, after we have identified the champions, like I said, the next piece is we have to assess where we currently stand. What are some of those things that we actually want to change or to influence? And so these are just a bunch of examples. And so on the one side, we have specific to the members, so the firefighter metrics. Things like participation rates, like was mentioned. And thinking about what does participation actually look like? Is this number of times per per week? Is this the length of time you're doing it? Is this the effort that you're putting in? Is this the buy-in? What does that look like? Satisfaction. So, do they view this as accessible? Do they view this as inclusive? Is there diversity here? Then from a very physical perspective, have we changed their fitness? Have we changed the way they move? Have we changed their behaviors? Have we changed their attitude towards this? But then we also have the organizational stuff. And ultimately, I think if you guys reflected on your own departments, the culture is going to be a big piece of the puzzle here. So when you're thinking about what does success look like, really think about what have we done from an organizational perspective. So the individual piece is one thing, but have we actually changed the workplace culture? Or have we gone the other way? In working for my experience, working with a few departments, they've put some really interesting initiatives together, but it actually had the opposite effect of what they were looking for, because it made people somewhat scared of fitness. So by having, whether it's an incumbent test or an annual fitness test, it had people shy away from the idea of exercise and physical activity. And so the only reason you end up participating is to pass the test, not to actually improve quality of life and address all the conditions that we had. And so it seems on paper like a great initiative. Yeah, we're going to implement an incumbent test, make sure everybody's fit to do the job. We're going to have this annual assessment. But it actually had the opposite effect of what was intended. And so having some metrics like this to say, are we actually achieving success as defined or initially laid out, is going to be really important for you guys. Okay. One of the other pieces here in terms of assessing where we currently stand, I think that understanding why people are motivated to exercise or be active is very important. So this is just these are 5 questions up top here from a survey that I'm happy to share on trying to understand why people are motivated to exercise. And so, I exercise because other people say I should. You guys can just think about this on your own. Whether it's you strongly agree or you strongly disagree, that gives us a sense of why you're motivated. So some people are motivated very strongly because other people say they should. Some people are motivated just to be because they intrinsically see value in the activity. But on this scale here, from being completely amotivated, so I'm not motivated by anything, to being motivated by guilt, motivated by rewards of some sort, so whether it's financial incentives or otherwise, to I'm motivated because of a challenge, because I want to see an improvement in my fitness, because I want to see, or I value in my health, that can tell us what type of initiatives we should be putting together. So at the bottom here, so I can be motivated by various things. For me, incentives don't work. So I think I would consider myself very intrinsically motivated. So you try and dangle, money out in front of me, or you try and dangle, whatever it is in front of me, it's not really going to help me. But other people are motivated by incentives. And so we need to think, what does our department look like? What is the membership, motivated by? Because that might, trigger some ideas of how we get more people involved. I think oftentimes what's happened is we think about the very fit people, and we try and use, assessments, like some of the fitness assessments or the incumbent testing. That might motivate a very fit individual, but it has the opposite effect on the people that we're actually trying to tackle, or we're actually trying to address. The individuals that we want to get off the couch are not motivated by the same things. So we need to use a different strategy to get the people off the couch than it is to keep the people active that are already active. And so if we have diversity in solutions within our departments, then we're going to be much more successful. So if we can get the individual off the couch, then maybe we can start to transition them from being extrinsically motivated by something like an incentive to being more intrinsically motivated by the value in health and fitness. Okay, but again, as a longer term solution, we have to appreciate the diversity that might exist in our departments. Okay, so as a step 3, so I talked about identify the champions, and we have to assess the needs and the wants of the department. The next piece is let's actually start designing some solutions for this. And I just want to highlight that, again, this is not just exercise, or not just about getting better at exercise. We have to think bigger than this. And so the peer fitness training program that's put together by the IFF really emphasizes work-life play. Our big picture goal here, is in addition to more firefighters, more active, more often, is we need to see value off the job. Okay, a lot of firefighters are motivated by the things that they do outside of work. And so if they don't see that the initiatives that we're putting forward are addressing those things, they're going to lose interest. Okay, so we really have to think about, again, that list that we had at the beginning, but also what's important to our firefighters. And when I started working with the fire service back in 2008, I made the mistake of going in and thinking everybody wanted to be a better firefighter. Or, telling everybody that I was going to make them a better firefighter. And that was bad for so many reasons. So one, how are you going to tell me to be a better firefighter? And two, I don't necessarily care about being a better firefighter. It's the things that I do when I go home at the end of the day that are really driving me. And so we have to make sure that we're catering to those things as well. And so what the IFF has done in their program is really try and embrace the idea of this whole well-rounded work-life play idea, so that the value that is seen is both on and off the job. So we talked about changing perceptions of what exercise looks like. So this was actually at a Redmond conference, so health and safety conference a couple years ago. But getting them to think differently of what exercise looks like. So this is one of our morning, so-called exercise sessions. We just had some fun. We're just playing some games. And it was, you can't be really good at tag. Like there's no, sometimes you go into a gym, you get somewhat intimidated by, hey, I can't lift as much here, or I'm not as fast here, or you feel kind of out of place. We did something like this. Is also, again, thinking about the design. This is me in my office. So part of our goal here is to highlight the fact that it doesn't have to be done in a gym. So don't just design gym-based solutions to address the needs and the wants of your members. A lot of them don't want to be in the gym. A lot of them don't want to work out on shift. A lot of them may not want to change, out of their clothes and put on shorts. As an initial step, that's okay. So put together some solutions that they can use that don't look like that. So again, it's getting them thinking differently about what exercise looks like. And again, this may not appeal to absolutely every member in your department, but some of the members that don't want to go to the gym, this might be, I didn't think about that before. Okay, so again, it's thinking differently, embracing some diversity. From an implementation standpoint, part of this is also education. It's not just about exercise and giving them physical activities to be doing. Some of it is changing their perception of maybe what's actually possible, or what's real, what's true. So I don't know if you guys have heard this before. I've been doing it for years. Can't be the problem. Anybody heard that? I hear that all the time from this population. Or my knees hurt. Must be because of my age. I'm getting older. It's just part of getting older. My knees start to hurt. My back starts to hurt. My shoulders start to hurt. The job's taking its toll. What if it has nothing to do with that? I tell this story all the time. I try to not tell it. I end up telling it anyways. But I was working with a guy. This is like 9 years ago now. Working with a department, Luke's department. And we were doing a little workshop. And I was just basically walking them through how to walk up and down stairs, getting out of the truck in a safe and effective manner. Some of you guys may have heard this story before. But a little hands-on workshop. And one of the tips that I gave is just when you're getting out of the truck, knee, hip, foot, nice straight line the whole time. That was it. This firefighter, he's a 20-year captain, had pain in his right knee for about 20 years. Every single time, got in and out of the truck or walk upstairs. After that workshop, so at the end of the workshop, guy came up to me. All I said again was knee, hip, foot, nice straight line. Came up to me afterwards, he said, today was the first day I didn't have pain when doing that. It's like, holy crap, like completely surprised me. 2 months later, I came back and said, I haven't had pain since that day. Like, a lot of this is just becoming aware, is just simple little things that we can, little tips and tools that we can provide from an education perspective to change the perception of what some of this stuff is or the impact it can have. It had nothing to do with this guy's age. Nothing to do with his age. He was thinking, this is it for me for the rest of my life. I'm going to retire, still have that knee pain. Knee pain's gone. So if we can provide these little tips like knee, hip, foot aligned to all of our members today, some of the aches and the pains that they're dealing with, that they've been dealing with for years, can go away in an instant. And so in addition to the exercise piece, we need to be providing some resources just to make them aware of what's actually possible. And so that's a big part of what the IFF is doing in their peer fitness training program. And again, it's not just about the gym, but it's about how do we impact those things you guys identified as being important from the very beginning. Okay, it goes back, there's little things like this for sleep, there's little things like this for injuries, there's little things like this for some type of heart disease. There's a lot of stuff that we can be doing that our members just don't know about. And so lean on the IFF to provide some of those resources for you guys. And then have your PFTs disseminate this for all the members. So this is a thing I mentioned earlier, this movement hygiene idea. So this is also something that the IFF has kind of invested in to distribute to the members. And so it's the idea that we can accomplish a lot with 5 minutes a day. Or, like Luke was just telling me about an article that was published just recently, where it was 1 minute a day. 1 minute a day. So we brush our teeth in the morning and at night. Take 1 minute, take 2 minutes when you're doing that. Work on your movement hygiene. So mobility is one of those things that we all need. So we all sit in the toilet, we all wash our hair, we all climb stairs. We need ankle, hip, and shoulder mobility to do that. If we don't have that mobility for some reason, whatever it is, that's going to influence our quality of life. We're going to have to compensate in some way, and then maybe we end up tweaking this, tweaking that, and then we start dealing with this pain. If we work for 1 minute, 2 minutes a day on maintaining the mobility that we need, on maintaining our movement hygiene, all that stuff can go away. And this is stuff you can do in your underwear before you brush your teeth. And so we're providing solutions for you guys, so you don't have to come up with all this stuff on your own. The IFF is providing you with solutions so you can distribute this to your members. So anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes a day, just do this stuff. And we can see a lot of the aches and the pains that our firefighters have, they can go away. And then again, that's going to have a huge impact on attitudes towards exercise, the buy-in to what you guys are doing. And then ultimately, work comp, injuries, all the health conditions we see. Because people are now more inclined to be active, because it doesn't hurt. So let's start with 1 to 5 minutes a day. And it may not seem like a lot, but you do that every single day, it starts to change the behaviors that we're talking about. We said this is a behavioral issue. It becomes a habit. Now I don't even think about it anymore. You guys probably don't think about having to brush your teeth. It's like, oh crap, I gotta brush my teeth again. I'm sure you're not doing that. It's become the habit. So we can have this become the same thing. They don't even think about it anymore. It's part of their daily activities. Next step, so evaluate. This, as I said, we have to track progress. Are we being successful? And so I don't know if you guys have seen the 4th edition of the WFI with the IFF, but in that, there's a great resource for you guys. This is just providing some evidence to show what impact you can have in terms of reducing injuries, saving dollars. And so this is stuff that you're probably going to need, whether you're selling this to management, whether you're selling it to the city. There's a case to be made. The IFF has done a lot of the homework for you guys to say this is what you can expect to see if you put an initiative like this together. And there's a ton of evidence even outside of this to show anywhere from a 3-to-1 to a 6-to-1 return on investment for wellness, for prevention. And so we can be proactive instead of being reactive, and you're definitely going to see the outcomes. And again, I don't think I mentioned this before, but share the results. Testimonials go so far. So if you have somebody saying, hey, this program changed my life. I caught this heart condition that I had. I don't have that aches and those aches or pains anymore. That stuff goes a lot. When you hear different stories from members, it gets other members pretty inspired or pretty motivated to make a difference. And so I think that's got to be a big part of what you guys are doing. Spread the word, share the successes, no matter how small they are. If you take somebody from, not being active at all for say 5-10 years since they got on the job, and now they're starting to be active again, that's a huge win to celebrate. It isn't just about being more fit. It's about being active. So if you, in your department, so I asked, how many departments the majority, view exercise as a positive thing. If you flip the switch and now you start getting people's attitudes to be a little different towards exercise, that's a huge win. Even if they haven't started yet. If you can change the perception or the attitude towards this initiative, that's something you guys can be celebrating. Okay, so those are just kind of some things to think about with these different steps. From an implementation standpoint, this was from a paper published 2016. So they identified, in organizations like the fire service, all the different factors that are going to be critical to successful implementation. So these were what they then identified as 6 of the most influential. Number 1 being culture. Okay, so again, like I mentioned before, if you don't think about how what you're doing is going to influence the culture, that could have negative consequences. Think about what is this whole multi-level leadership. So this means it can't just be a top-down approach. Involve all stakeholders. Let everybody have a say. Unions got to be buying into this. The members got to be buying into this. The management's got to be buying into this. Everybody's got to have some skin in the game, or at least feel like their voice is being heard. If it isn't, then you're going to run up against this. Okay, so try and include everybody. Commitment to change. So I think, from my experience, oftentimes people get a little discouraged if they don't see the results they are looking for within 6 months or within a year. Some of this stuff can take a long time to change. So this is why it's going to be important to have some shorter term metrics where you guys can say, I am actually being successful. It's just those big picture items or the big ticket items like dollars and injuries. That's going to take a little bit more time to shake out. So be patient with it. And just have a few more things that you can say, yeah, we are on the right track. That initiative that we put forward to try and get people to buy in to what it is that we're doing, like the messaging that we sent out for this, that's actually working. We have more people asking questions about or for resources that we can provide them with for this whole peer fitness training thing. That's a huge win. It may not translate to injuries in dollars yet, but more people are asking about it. That's a huge win. Okay, so be patient with the efforts you guys are putting in. Collaboration, this is both within the department, so all the stakeholders collaborating, but also for you guys, look to external partners. Rely on some of the other people in your communities to actually support what you guys are doing. Now, I know a lot of departments that have looked to, whether it's local gyms to provide access to resources, lean on universities to help collect some of the information. But don't feel like you have to do this alone. Lean on the IFF. Please contact the IFF and say, hey, are there resources that you guys have that we could, use in our departments? I think that we can do much more collectively than we can individually. And so there's a lot of successes that have been, that we've seen across the country. And so I think oftentimes we end up trying to do things on our own and we recreate or experience the same barriers that other departments have had. Whereas if we can contact the IFF and say, hey, what has been going on elsewhere, let's lean on that so we don't make the same mistakes. Let's continue to build on each other. And I think we're going to achieve a success a lot quicker if we can do that. This accessible piece, cater to the diversity amongst your membership. So like I said before, if we're only providing resources for one type of individual, whether it's the fit individual or the non-fit individual, we could be losing a lot of our members by doing so. So make it accessible, make it inclusive, cater to the diversity that you guys have. So lots of options are going to be important for your success. And then the last piece here on communication, I mentioned this a few times, but how you message this is really going to be important. Just think about that whole term of exercise. So are you guys selling this as an exercise initiative? If you're selling this as a fitness initiative, what comes along with that? And so how are you selling it? So the details of the program don't necessarily have to change, but as just an example, if you're putting posters up or sending emails out or videos or whatever, just the messaging that goes around it, like the actual words, make those different. And so now when somebody's reading it, it's like, hey, that matters to me. Whereas this one, I don't really connect with that. The picture, the video could be the exact same thing, but it's the message. For me, it doesn't create this emotional response here, whereas this one does. Everybody has to feel like this is for them. And so just think about it. What does your messaging need to look like to cater to the diversity you guys have in your department? Anybody know who Simon Sinek is? Anybody heard that name before? So if you haven't, check it out. He's got a great TED Talk online. One of the big things he talks about, so this is typically done from a business perspective, but how can we have influence? And ultimately what we're trying to do is have influence. And so there's a big difference between motivation, inspiration, and influence. Motivation is really what kind of drives us, whether, like I said before, whether it's guilt, rewards, coercion, the whole fitness thing. Inspiration is really creating that emotional response, to trigger something. I kind of get excited about it, but influence is what we want to have. We as ambassadors or advocates for fitness and wellness in our departments, we want to have influence, meaning that we want to direct where we want our members to go. We want more firefighters, more active, more often. That's what we're trying to influence. Okay, so just getting somebody excited and then providing them with no direction or no solution, that's not good enough. Okay, because they're going to get excited and they're going to lose interest. We need to think about how can we have influence. And so what Simon Sinek does, and this is his, what he calls the golden circle, is really think about what is our primary purpose? Why are we doing what we're doing? So I don't want you to tell me what we're doing. I don't want you to tell me, hey, we're going to do some exercise stuff and we're going to provide some education. I want you to tell me why we're doing it. So why is your department actually investing in wellness and fitness? What is the underlying premise behind what you're doing? And if you can get people excited for the why, that's going to influence their investment in this whole initiative. Okay, so really think about why you guys are doing what you're doing, not what are you doing or how you're doing it. Go back to the why, and that's Simon Sinek's big thing is start with why, and everything else can come from that. Okay, so I would encourage you guys to do the same things. Okay, last thing I want to do here is walk you guys through, I know the bottom part's going to be hard to see, but just bear with me and I can provide you guys with the slides. But I want to walk you through a practical example of what this could actually look like if you're trying to roll out some type of program. Does that work? So on the bottom here, this is a 18-month kind of plan. So again, longer term, it's not just going to be 6 months. We're seeing all the successes. 18-month piece, we have 8 different phases or 8 kind of shifts in what we're trying to do, resources involved. Bigger picture objective here is we're trying to implement a PFT program to improve firefighter fitness and wellness on and off the job. Okay, that's our why. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Wellness and fitness, again, meaning all those things we talked about in the beginning. That's our why. I want everybody to get excited or to buy in to that impact. I don't care about getting you better in the gym. Okay? For some people, it's not even about the job. It's off the job. That's what I want you to buy into. Okay. So again, I'll leave this with you guys, some of the details here. So we don't have to go into detail about the details provided. But at each of these steps, we've identified some action items that are going to be important for you guys to be thinking about. Okay, so from the first phase is let's assess our needs. So again, what does our department look like? What are the needs? What are the wants? That's going to be your first step. Because again, like I said in the beginning, your design, your implementation is going to be based on the information you collect in this stage. As an example, this is from some work that I did with the Toronto Fire Department up in Canada. So they were trying to launch something, and before we started, I said to them, I think it's going to be very valuable to understand what is the attitude towards health and wellness in your department. And so what we did is 12 consecutive Saturdays, they pulled 10 trucks offline and sent them down on their training academy for a health and wellness workshop with me. But they weren't told who I was or what we were doing. All they were told is you're going down to the training academy for a health and wellness workshop or health and safety workshop. And so they show up and it's me. And they don't know who I am, but they're not happy to be there. And so they were, pretty pissed off. And as you can imagine, they've heard all this before. This is BS. I had some people saying, did my union president know about this? I don't agree. I don't want to be here. I don't think we should have to be doing whatever you're doing. But to me, that whole process was going to be very important to understand what is the attitude towards health and wellness within this department. If they knew who I was or what we're trying to do, they might tell me what they think I wanted to hear. And so we didn't tell them who I was and what we were doing. We just sent them down and said, okay, raw, let me have it. And they did. And so they were telling me, all these things about why they didn't want to do what they wanted to do, or why they didn't want to be there. But if we were going to actually implement any successful type of solution, I needed to know where we were starting. And you guys need to know the same thing. Don't just sugarcoat all of this. No BS, just tell me straight up what we're dealing with. That's what you need to know in order to start. And so from this, we started asking them questions about what do you guys want to see value, or where do you want to see value with some type of wellness and fitness initiative or health and wellness initiative. And so first question to them was, where do you want to see the impact? You know, is this a performance thing? Is this trying to prevent injury? Is this preventing disease? Is this something else? We had about 450 people come through. So the department's about 2,400 members. We had about 450 come through. Half of them said preventing injuries is going to be the most important thing for me. Which means that the initiatives that we're putting together, the messaging that we have, has to address these things, because that's how these individuals are going to see value in it. The second question we had is, where do you want to see the impact? Is this a job thing? Is this a recreational kind of play activity thing? Or is this a lifestyle at home thing? Where do you want to see the influence of this, health and wellness initiative? Half of them said, I need to see an impact at home. This has to impact my life outside the job. It's like, okay, again, if we want them to see value, if we want them to buy into what we're doing, if we actually want them to take that first step, get off the couch and start to do some of these things, we have to have them see value in the life at home. If they don't, they're going to lose interest. So this told us a lot. So it said, hey, when we're defining success, when we're looking at those smaller term metrics, when we're looking at the design of some of the solutions we're putting forwards, it has to address injuries and it has to address life at home. But the other big thing from this kind of project was, it was only half of the members that said that. So the other half said something else. So it means that the messaging that we have, the solutions that we're putting forwards, also have to address the other 50%. We have to have diversity in our solutions. We have to have diversity in our messaging if we're going to cater to the entire department. And so I think that's going to be very important for you guys. Think about what is the attitude, the perception of this type of thing with your members. And maybe just, ask them. And so this is something those influential people or your PFTs could actually do. Just, it doesn't have to be formal like this was. It can just be in conversation. What are the members actually saying? And that's going to tell you a lot to say, what is my first step? How do I actually promote this initiative or this program that we're putting together? Same type of thing. If we're saying, we want to reduce injuries, first question I would ask is, do you actually have an injury problem? Like, what injuries are being sustained? Are the injuries that are being sustained, are they actually preventable? Because if they're not, then you're not going to be successful. And if we can understand what injuries are actually being sustained, that gives us insight into mechanisms. That gives us insight into what type of the prevention strategies that we need. So diving in a little bit deeper into what your injury problem looks like will then direct the design of the solutions you're putting forwards. This is just some data here from the Calgary Fire Department. We were working with them, so over a 5-year span, looking at the types of injuries being sustained. And then this was from a 1-year period, what were the costs of injuries? And this was only work comp. This wasn't backfill. This wasn't open claims or any of that. But the big thing here was backs, knees, and shoulders were the most costly injuries. And I'm sure it's probably similar in your departments in terms of the incidents, but also the costs associated. And so if we can understand, okay, backs, knees, shoulders have very specific mechanisms. Therefore, the prevention strategies should look like this. So again, from an assessment standpoint, this gives us a lot of great information to then use moving forwards. Okay, so that's kind of phase 1. So let's take an inventory of what's actually going on. Phase 2 is let's prep the department for what's coming. So those of you who have gone through the PFT program, I'm not sure if you've actually done this, but I would encourage you guys to do this if you haven't and you're thinking about investing in PFT. So before you send people off to a class, get the department ready for what's coming after they come home. Have a plan in place. So how are we actually going to use our PFTs? And so what, in this example here, and what we're working towards with this department, is that we're going to try and get everybody on board for this whole health and wellness thing before we invest in PFTs. So as soon as the PFTs come back, we can hit the ground running. We can start sharing some of these resources, providing some of these tools or this education. So the members are, we're getting them excited so the PFTs can have the influence that we really think they can have. So this second step here is really about the promotion of the program and the messaging component. So as an example, we've gone into a few departments now with the IFF, and done general sessions for the entire membership. And so we're trying to get everybody on the same page. And so in this example here, so I think this was Toronto as well. So given the diversity that I talked about, our thought was, can we actually, some people pissed off about health and wellness, some people don't want to hear it anymore. Can we get everybody on the same page and actually excited or buying in to some type of initiative? Excited for PFTs when they come home. And so we delivered a 2-hour workshop. There was a little bit of lecture, a little bit of hands-on stuff. 2 hours. This is some of the data after that workshop. So I had 94% of the individuals that were in these workshops, so 450 people, 94% say, I am now more motivated to be healthier and safer at work. Given the diversity of where we started, 94% are agreeing they're more motivated now afterwards. I think for me, the biggest thing here was 88% of the 450 said, I'm more motivated to help my brothers and sisters after 2 hours. So just for you guys, if you could think about it, you take whatever your departments look like. If you could have, whether it's the IFF or you guys delivering some type of general information session, if you can get everybody on the same page and excited for some type of initiative, so that after, whether it's you bringing your PFTs back or after you launch the program, everybody knows what's coming, everybody's looking forwards to these initiatives, these resources you're providing. That's going to be really important and have much different results than if you just go in blindly and say, hey, now we have PFTs, go. To get everybody on the same page, to buy in to health and wellness, is an awesome, awesome first step. And we've had incredible success by starting here with some general sessions. So we had a lot of diversity in the group, some people wanting to improve performance, some people wanting to get better in the gym, some people never exercising in the past 20 years. At the end of this, they all bought in to what we were trying to do. That's going to be incredibly important for your success. And there are some little things that you can do to message it, to have everybody see value in these initiatives that you're putting together. And again, the IFF is happy to share what we have and what we've done in the past to support you guys in your own initiatives. So step 3. So we've taken the kind of the needs assessment. We've got the department. Question?
I know
Yep.
you had a face-to-face doing that, and I would imagine that that's probably more productive than doing maybe just like a mass email, but I didn't know if anybody had experience being successful doing a mass email, or if you just recommend face-to-face, or I'm just trying to think if I want to get feedback from everybody and make sure I'm addressing everybody's needs. It seems like a mass email would be the easiest, but maybe I don't know if it's the best.
So I don't know if it's the best, but I'd say, can it be effective? 100% it can be effective. So I think having an email, just giving people a voice can go a long way. I think it's how you tailor the email. Really, soliciting their feedback and saying why you want their feedback can go a long way. So, pardon?
What about a survey?
Same thing.
Toss that around.
Yep, 100%. So we've used surveys before as well, but I think the context to the survey, because a lot of departments are surveyed out. And you guys, some of your members might see that. So it's just these constant surveys. But if you can provide some context to why we're administering this survey or why we're sending the email out, and there's actually action happening after the fact, then people might be more inclined to actually provide honest responses to it. The other thing, if you're providing an email or a survey, is just the anonymity. And so who's sending out the email, who has access to the information, how's the information being used? And so that's also something just to consider, because some people may be less inclined to provide you with honest responses if they think that management is going to see it. So just consider that if you guys are going down those roads.
You might have better luck if you're going the electronic route too, doing something like over a Facebook group. We have a closed group for our local. We have almost 100% participation in our local, for our department in our local. And so if you're trying something electronic where you're not sitting down with everybody, do a little 2-minute Facebook video explaining what this PFP thing is and how it's going to help and whatever else. And if you got questions, contact me or your sister or whatever. That might, because then people can see your face too and what you're doing and that kind of stuff. And their email won't get, people don't respond to emails anymore. Some people will comment the hell out of them. Facebook posts. So you might put one there too.
That's a great suggestion. Any other comments there? Okay. So after we've kind of prepped the department for what's coming, and you've kind of taken some inventory of what people are looking for, with this PFT model, and this is where you actually prepare the PFTs. And so this is, either hosting a class, sending a class, providing with some of that initial education, information, those skills that can be used. But this is also really thinking about how you're going to be using your PFTs when they come back. So if you've kind of got some information from your members, this is what they are interested in, this is what you want to do, as a big picture, how we're defining success. What does the actual implementation of the PFT strategy here look like? So I would strongly suggest that you don't send PFTs to a class or don't host a class without understanding how and why you're going to use them. I've seen too many departments invest, a lot of this money, all this time into having PFTs, and then they come back and there's no plan. So have a plan in place. Okay, really think about what should this look like and can this look like? And I'll provide you guys with some thoughts and examples and how the IFF can help, but don't go into this blind. Especially if you're going to prep your department and say, hey guys, this is what's coming, we're sending people off to become a little bit more educated, they're going to come back and they're going to do these things. If they come back and nothing happens, it's kind of that whole crying wolf thing, and people are just going to get, they've got excited and they're just going to lose interest, and you're going to lose credibility if you don't follow through on what you've said you're going to do. Okay, so first step, prepare the department. Now prepare your PFTs. And again, this is communicating with the members about what their roles are actually going to look like. As some examples, so within our PFT course, we emphasize what we call our 7 key features, or the fact that movement is going to be very important. This is one of the ways that we translate things from the gym to work-life play. No matter where you are, what you're doing, who you are, what you want to accomplish, this stuff matters absolutely everywhere. And so in terms of buy-in and seeing why this matters, how this matters, it's been a great message for us to have people adopt or see value in what the PFTs are actually able to do. So this is an example. So these firefighters here, just lifting hose up on the truck. So we had some other firefighters kind of standing around in the back, and they have 2 pieces of orange duct tape on their back. And what the instruction here was, we're looking at the 2 lines and we want them to stay the same distance apart when these firefighters are bending down and when they're lifting up. If those 2 lines get farther apart or closer together, you're putting yourself a little bit more risk for back injury. And so this is whether you're lifting up a hose, whether you're in the gym, you're lifting something off the ground, you're at home picking up the groceries, you're picking up your child, doesn't matter. Those 2 lines, same distance apart the whole time. And so we have these 7 things that we're sharing with our PFTs that they can then share with every single member. Again, to try and make this matter where the member wants to see it actually matter. Okay, so that's just one example. The other thing is, it's really about this community culture type of piece. So part of the course that our PFTs are doing is really highlighting the value of cohesion, building a team, building a community, appreciating the perspectives of the entire membership. And so this is just an example from a PFT class where everybody's kind of working together. So we provide some opportunities for our PFTs to do that in the course, so that when they go back to the departments, it's not the first time they'll have done it. So they get an opportunity to actually deliver exercise in this environment. They also get a chance to provide education. And so the first time they go back in the department, if you're giving them access to the members, they'll have delivered education to people before. So that's not the first time. That's just a couple examples. So PFTs come back, we kind of prepped them a little bit, said, hey, here's what you guys can do. This is going to be your role. Whatever your department wants, whether it's you're going to have assigned time to do these things or you're just an ambassador, again, doesn't matter. That's going to be up to you guys. When you go back, we're actually going to launch the program and you're going to assume these type of roles. With this department here that we're working with, we're going to have the IFF is providing exercise programs for the department. And so through the PFT, so the PFT can then share their resources for the exercise programs. And the IFF is going to be providing education. And so providing some prepackaged education that can be delivered in an online manner or an in-person manner. So again, just related to the things that we've identified as being important in the beginning. So the diabetes, the injuries, the mental health, all that stuff, PFTs are the individuals that are going to help disseminate that. So PFTs education and PFTs with exercise. But resources are coming from the IFF so that it's not on the department to actually build these things. Because that's the other, the feedback that we've gotten is this is great, but I don't necessarily still have the confidence to be designing this stuff. The other thing is, you guys don't have the time. Okay, so we don't necessarily want the PFTs to have to be designing all this from scratch. Lean on the IFF and the resources that we have, and we can continue to build to support you guys. So we can provide you with exercise programs, exercise sessions that can be done in the station or at home. And we can provide you with education that can be delivered, again, through an online form if you don't have the opportunity to go face-to-face. Or if you're just sitting around your station and you want to share some stuff, you have that option too. Okay, so with this group, we've broken it up into 3-month chunks. And so after the PFTs come back right away, exercise programs start to be delivered. And so again, members can choose to do it, they can choose not to do it, but there's options available for everybody. And we're going to provide opportunity to deliver education or make people more aware of some of the things that are really important. Okay, so that's going to be our phase 4 here. Again, this is just an example of a piece of the education that is being provided. So the work smarter, not harder. So this is how everything they've done in the PFT class can link to the job. So little tips about what we can do on a daily basis while at work to make ourselves a little safer, more effective. And then again, from an exercise perspective, this is just an example of some of the solutions that the IFF can provide for you guys. So this is with an Austin Fire Department, everybody kind of working together. So part of the exercise piece here is, from the IFF's perspective, is appreciating the diversity amongst the membership. And so it's having ways to accommodate or adapt the sessions that are being provided so everybody can do them as a crew, which was also very important for us. Okay, so after the kind of this 3-month rollout, we also want to continue to engage our PFT. So I think some of the other reasons why programs have fallen off in the past is there's been no engagement with PFTs after they've done this whole initial course. So we want to change that. And so we're going to try and engage again. So as phase 5 PFT follow-up, provide some additional resources, additional tools that can be used by the PFTs to then share with the members again. And so again, this could be an in-person piece. In this case it is. It could also be an online piece. But it's to equip the PFTs with some more stuff that can help with successful implementation of this program. The goal here, well, I guess I'll tell you that in a sec. So this is just an example of direction for the PFT program. So in terms of continuing education, all the different components, in-person, online, where we can actually direct the education for our PFTs. Okay, so everything from learning how to assess and to design to the relationship between exercise and mental health, the exercise in cancer. So these are different modules that PFTs can actually use to stay engaged, but also then to share with the members. So we're looking for ways to continue to engage our PFTs so their impact is a little bit bigger in your departments. And then the other piece, so with this second tier of engaging our PFTs, part of the importance here is to empower the members. So we want to provide PFTs with access to resources that can be shared with the members so they can embrace this idea of self-care, or this is where the hygiene comes in. And so some of the tools that we're providing are little self-assessments that any single member can do to say, hey, what can I do or what should I use for exercise? So this stage here is really about trying to personalize some of the recommendations or the solutions that are being made. As I mentioned before, mobility is something that we all need, so it doesn't matter who we are. The extent to which we need mobility might differ, but we all need some degree of mobility. And so we have a few different self-assessments that every single person in here can actually try to see, hey, where do I fall? What do I need? And it's not about, are you good, are you bad? It's just based on how you perform. It's like, you need this versus you need this. And so this is where the IFF can provide resources to the PFTs that can then distribute to absolutely everybody. So in the privacy of their own home, the member can say, hey, I'm going to try this little self-care assessment piece. Based on how I score, I'm going to have access to these different resources. So here's some examples of things that I can actually do to make me better. And then, I might perform differently than my peer over here, so that peer gets something different, but everybody is really addressing their needs. And so this second, again, like I said, the second layer of this PFT piece is really to provide some personalized solutions to all the members. So this is just one example here, so trying to look at hip mobility. We've got a bunch for ankle and shoulder and stuff as well. Anybody want to see what the shoulder one is?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have a volunteer? And you kind of help me with that up here? Come on up.
One's worse than the other, so.
Good. Okay, and again, there's no good, there's no bad. It's just we're trying to say, hey, whether you perform this way or that way, here's solutions that I can use versus you can use. So the shoulder one, so the hip one, we're just looking for where your leg gets to. For shoulder one, gonna make a fist with your thumb inside. Okay, so hand up above your head. I'm gonna have you face this way so everybody can see. Essentially, what you're doing is dropping your hand down your back as far as you can go. If you can pass C7, so which is this bony part in your neck, if you can pass C7, that means you get these solutions. If you can't pass C7, you get these solutions. So he was past C7 with that side. Okay, let's see the other side. Actually, a little farther on that one.
Yeah, this is a bad one.
His bad one is still pretty good. Okay, so he passed C7 on both sides. So we would say you get this suite of solutions for your shoulder. If me, you just stay up here for a second with me. So if I got to here, so I couldn't quite get as far, I couldn't get to C7, that means I need some different stuff for my shoulders than he does. So we could have somebody, send this out to every single firefighter and say, hey, can you touch, whether it's the collar on your shirt or that big bony part in the back of your neck, yes or no? If you can, do this. If you can't, do this. And we have a whole bunch of solutions that people can use in either case. Okay, so that's for shoulder. We're going to go the other way as well. So make a fist again, thumb inside. This time you're going to go up your back as far as you go. Okay? Okay, so for this one as well, we're looking to see how far up his back he can go. And then try the other side for me. Oh, he's a little farther on that side. Okay, so we have a measurement that we can use. So if you can get one hand length up your back, you get these solutions. So hand length meaning, from my bottom of my palm to tip of my finger. If you can reach up the one hand length, you get these solutions. If you can't, you get these solutions. So he was a little different on both sides. Okay, so one shoulder needs something that the other shoulder doesn't. Is that cool with you guys? Okay, that's just one example. So that's a shoulder. You're going to stay with me for one more second. Also ankle. It's a little thing you guys can do for your ankle. So if you put your foot, I guess, right up in line, your toe right up in line with this the stage here, and then the question will become, can you get your knee to your toe? So you guys can imagine doing this against a wall. Okay, so if you're up against a wall, we're going to pretend this is the wall. If your toe is right against the wall, can you also touch the wall with your knee? So push your knee forwards. So the answer would be yes, while your heel stays down on the ground. So then you're going to move your toe backwards and see how far can you get your toe back from the wall while your knee still touches. Is everybody with me there? So you're trying to get as far back from the wall with your toe as you can while your knee still touches the wall. If you can back off more than 10 centimeters for those from Canada, 4 inches for everybody down here. So if you can get 4 inches back, you get these solutions. If you can't get 4 inches, you get these solutions. Something super simple you can do at home. Thank you. I got a little present for you afterwards too. Okay, so we have these are self-care little assessments that every single firefighter can do. Yep.
Just to give some other guys some maybe ideas, guys and gals. I mean, this is a lot of the functional. Are you familiar with the functional
Yep.
movement screen? So that is one of the approaches that we've taken because we know not everybody wants to. Some people will run, some people will swim, some people will lift. But this mobility and this functional movement is critical for everybody, no matter what you want to do. So we screen everybody in the functional movement screen, which is a bunch of things like this, and then they get an individualized, so that's a big thing too, right, making sure it's an individualized program based off of how they score. And the FMS website dictates that program too, so it doesn't require a ton of work from the trainer's perspective, you just have to know how to do the screen, which we sent guys to class to do, and then they can access all this stuff online in the FMS database, so it works pretty well.
Yeah, from an engagement standpoint, providing individual members with actual solutions that are important to them is going to be awesome. And so this stage here is really to try and empower the members so you don't need to rely on the PFTs for absolutely everything. And so it's really thinking differently about how we use PFTs. So if we can empower the members to assess themselves, and then they have their own solutions that can be done anywhere, we find it's going to be a much more effective strategy to have more people buy into what we're doing. And so in addition to just the mobility piece, there are different kind of tiers to this. So if I want, hey, what's next? What's the additional challenge? We have a whole series of challenges that our members can be using to see where they are right now, and based on whether it's kind of a yes or a no, then you get access to these things or access to those things.
Based on the self-testing, you could almost take that home and engage your family.
100%, 100%. And so this, and I think it's a great point, because it's not just about me anymore. If we're thinking about getting people to buy in, and this was true of our 7 key features, if the firefighter then starts to share this with their family and their friends, they become more invested. And so whether it's the education that they're getting or little things like this that they can share, with their spouse or their kids, now they become more invested. And the more opportunities that we can provide for that, the more people are going to invest in the program and stay committed in the long term. So that's what the IFF is really trying to do, is provide you guys with access to resources and tools that can engage on a more frequent and consistent basis. So from an implementation standpoint, like I said, this is really about personalizing things a little bit more. This is another one of our challenges here. So to see if you're a yes or a no, so beyond the mobility, you're doing push-ups or pull-ups. In this case, can you get, this is like an inverted row or an inverted pull-up. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but can you get 10 reps in 15 seconds? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then here, this provides you access to these things. If no, then this provides you access to these things. And like I said, we have a series of little challenges or self-tests that everybody can use to see where you are. Yep?
When you say you have access to these things based off of how you do, what does that actually mean? Does that mean the PFT sends a person something, or do they go on to the IFF website? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say that's going to depend on how your department wants to roll it out. If everything wants to come through PFT, then the PFT could be the individual that provides access to these resources. If you just want the members to have access to it, then we could kind of set it up so the members have direct access to it.
Is
Yep.
this something that we're having to get access through you to get to? Because we have 6 PFPs. We've been doing this since WFI came.
Yep. This is within the past year. These are new things that we're creating to provide you guys. So
I was just on the website looking for any
So
information.
send us an email, and we'll try and get you guys access to this. So it's not up on the website yet.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll have to let us know that you're looking for this, and then we can get you access to it.
That's right.
Okay, so this is just an example again. So sessions created for the individual in the middle here. Just to show you that it is about personalizing. This next phase of implementation really is about personalizing it for the members based on what needs have shaken out. So what we also have is, and so this could be, whether it's for the PFTs or for members, we have case studies of actual firefighters going through some of these self-tests, these assessments, so you can see what they actually look like and what the solutions that have been developed for them are. And so it just gives you more insight into what people look like, what people are doing, and so on. But it's more resources for you guys to support, the long-term efforts that you're making. And the last piece here, like I said, really evaluate how successful you are. So go back to some of the initial stuff that we talked about. What does success look like? And make sure you're still checking in there. So again, culture, cohesion is going to be really important. So having some metrics for that. The last piece, just to highlight for you guys, going back to my original objective for what I want the PFT program to be, more firefighters, more active, more often. I think a big part of this is really changing the perception of what exercise is, what exercise needs to look like, where exercise needs to be done, who has access to it. And so what we've been doing for the past couple of years now is providing little snippets, little glimpses of maybe different ways to exercise. So this is highlighting the fact, or me and another individual here, we're doing a little 5-minute activity at the airport. We had some extra time before the flight took off. We're fitting in stuff on a daily basis. So I've made the commitment that it doesn't matter where I am, what I'm doing, I'm always going to have 5 minutes to do something. And so this is us just kind of changing, it doesn't have to be done in a gym. Luke's sitting in the middle there. He's already done his 5 minutes for the day. Okay, this is me in a colleague's office at the university. This is me trying to get her involved in activity. So part of that was showing her it can look different and making it fun, making it kind of exciting. So initially she was a little resistant to the whole thing, but by making it fun, making her laugh, she's now got far more involved in exercise and is doing these things on her own. And so again, we can use the same type of approach with our firefighters, that it doesn't have to look the same thing for everybody right away, and it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's got to jump into the gym today. It could be a slower, longer term strategy that we're using. Again, 5 minutes. That beat me up a little bit. Every time I travel, just again highlight this stuff can be done anywhere. Every single hotel room, I'll do something to provide options for people. And so I think that's a large part of what we're trying to do is just make it more accessible. And so if you guys imagine your chief doing something in his office or her office, what does that look like? That's commitment. That's showing that I am invested in this type of program. And if people see that, whether it's the union or our management is doing little things like this, they're going to be likely to get a little bit more invested. Okay, so all these videos, YouTube and Instagram, so performance_redefined on Instagram. But access them right now. If you want additional little options, hey, what does it look like here? What can it look like here? Let us know, and we can provide you guys with those. In addition to some of the other stuff that I mentioned in terms of the self-care and solutions and the things we're continuing to try and build to support the efforts that you guys are making moving forwards.